We are continuing our Position 360 series, and now we are moving to linebackers. Before we jump into that, I want to say thank you to Ready Vets. They provide immediate walk-in care for your pet in the Taylor Greenville area. Thank you to them for sponsoring the channel. And of course, thank you to Dustin Black, who is joining us today. He's our first guest in the series. Dustin, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be back on your channel.
Yeah, so Dustin from Clemson, be sure to follow him on X. His handle's up there. So, Dustin, let's start, as I do in all of these, let's start with last year and we'll move to this year, sort of set the stage. So, I don't know if this is a hot take at all. Maybe this is very obvious to people, but they came into last year with extremely lofty expectations, and it didn't start off so hot. I think maybe we overshot our expectations, but I don't quite think they lived up to it, up to those expectations. And to me, it was no more obvious than in that Duke game where Barrett Carter missed a huge tackle on Riley Leonard. He admitted he wasn't in shape after the game. Jeremiah Trotter, I think, was maybe not 100% healthy. And slowly as the year went on, Trotter became really elite. I don't think that Carter got there. So I was a little underwhelmed. Am I being too harsh? How would you describe last year's performance by the linebackers?
Oh, definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that they had, really high, lofty expectations coming into the season. At pretty much every list that you saw on social media or talk to anybody, one of the top linebacking duos in the country coming in with Carter and Trotter. And I think the beginning of the season just kind of proves, that playing that interior linebacker position in that 4-2-5 defense is incredibly difficult. And coming out of camp, you saw Trotter had a little bit of a hamstring injury that was nagging him a little bit, so maybe he didn't get the full reps he needed in fall camp leading up to week 1, and really didn't come on until the end of the season. But Carter really struggled, for most of the year. I think he's a really good playmaker. He's kind of always finds himself around the ball in that aspect. But I think as far as like fitting in the run and filling in gaps of that sort, I think he's got a long ways to go to really progress in that area of his game. And I think last year just kind of proved that.
It reminds me, and I think this is pretty timely, of Blake Wright on the baseball diamond. He had 347 with double-digit home runs in 40 games as a sophomore. And then as a junior, he had 249 with 8 home runs. And then as a senior, this is just regular season, but he had 341 and 21 home runs, was a superstar. It feels like that's what we're going to get from Barrett Carter. Is that a good analogy? Does that fit for you?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think it really fits. I think that Carter's going to have a big year. I think that he's kind of become that alpha in that room now. I think Trotter was more so the leader and the quarterback of that defense, and now Carter comes back. Wants to be a team captain, wants to lead the team, and becoming that vocal role and becoming that quarterback of the defense. I think that's huge for him, and I think it can boost his confidence a ton.
So we're sort of already alluding to our expectations for this upcoming year, but let's back up a little bit and talk about changes. So obviously, the big one, Jeremiah Trotter went to the Eagles in the 5th round, obviously a huge loss. And then incoming, you have Sammy Brown, the 5-star from Georgia. You have C.J. Kuba-Taylor from Maryland, and you have Drew Woodaz all joining the team. I guess, can you just talk a little bit about how hard you think it will be to replace Trotter? And then do you think the freshmen are going to have any part in helping replace him?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really difficult to replace Trotter. And one place that Trotter doesn't really give as much credit for, which I thought he was really good at, is he was a really good pass rusher. A lot of it's scheme and how Wes Goodwin draws up the blitzes to get that interior pressure from the interior linebacker position. But if you put Trotter one-on-one with a running back or even some guards, I mean, he made him look silly sometimes. And if you put him one-on-one in those situations, he had some good pass rush moves to get to the quarterback, and usually when he got to the quarterback, he got him down on the ground. So the tackles for loss and the sacks, that kind of production, like I alluded to, I think a lot of that is scheme. I think Wes Goodwin does a really good job of drawing those blitzes up. But, just from that aspect, I think that you're really going to miss him. And the guys that I think coming in, like Sammy Brown, I think he's very athletic, and I think he has the linear speed to, replace that kind of production, as we saw in the spring game, going around Tristan Lee to get a sack on the first play. So he definitely has that athletic ability. I think it's just the mental aspect of that, playing that interior linebacker position, that's really going to, take some time to get used to.
So let's dive into this upcoming year. We've talked about Barrett Carter, and I think we both have really high expectations for him. We got Wade Woodaz. I'm a big Jamal Anderson guy. Every spring game, he looks unbelievable, and then we didn't see him much last year. you have Kobe McLeod, you have D. Creighton, and then you just talked about Sammy Brown. How does that all shake out? I mean, this feels a lot deeper than last year. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly deep room. I mean, the way I look at it is I think you're going to have Woodaz and Carter start as your two interior linebackers. And then behind them, you're going to have, I think it's going to be Sammy Brown and Jamal Anderson. I think Sammy Brown is going to make a name for himself pretty early on. And I'm just kind of betting on his talent kind of breaking through there. So you have Sammy Brown and Jamal Anderson as your second string interior linebackers. I mean, those two guys would start at a lot of schools in the country. So I think that's how it ends up. And then you have Kobe McLeod and D. Creighton kind of shaking out behind that. And Cuba Taylor and Drew Woodaz are kind of wild cards to me. I don't know what to expect from them, honestly. Cuba Taylor was a really late take in the cycle, played a good counsel. I think we really pursued, some of the other guys on that defense harder than we did him and kind of took him late. And then Drew Woodaz is just, Wade Woodaz's little brother. So kind of got on him a little bit earlier than we do most recruits. And I don't know what to expect. I think he's a little undersized coming in, kind of similar to how Wade was his first year. So I don't expect much out of him in his first year. But Sammy Brown definitely as a freshman, I think, moves up the pecking order pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think where I'm netting out, I will say I think that Kobe McLeod will play a significant role. Him and D. Creighton had good grades from PFF last year. I know it was limited snaps. Obviously, they might not have the upside that Sammy Brown has, but I think at least in the first half of the season, they'll get plenty of play. To me, the thing, last year, the linebackers were good, but not as elite as maybe we expected. I just saw earlier today, so this was good timing. I just saw PFF release their, preseason sort of projection rankings. They had Clemson's linebacker group as number one in the country, above Georgia, above Ohio State, above them all. And to me, what makes that pretty reasonable is that they have depth. They have Jamal Anderson, who, I think is, if they'll give him the snaps, I've always been impressed with them. Very limited time I've seen them. You have Kobe McLeod, you have D. Creighton, you have a five-star Sammy Brown. I think Cuba Taylor and Drew Woodaz could be their special teams guys or redshirt, because we finally have really, really good depth. So I'll let you have the last word, but I'll just say, I don't know if they lived up to the very lofty expectations last year, although they were good, but this year I'm just as optimistic as I was last year. So maybe I'll get burnt again, but I think they're going to be awesome.
Yeah, well, a linebacker's best friend is playing behind a really good defensive line, and I know we're not going in too far into the defensive line in this video, but you expect Clemson's defensive line to be one of the best in the country as well. So, anytime you have linebackers playing behind a defensive line like that, it kind of makes their job easier. So if you're going to be high on the defensive line coming this year, as I would assume most Clemson fans and national media are, then, it's going to make the linebacker's job easier, and you hope that they're, in the right position to make plays, and you hope that, the veteran nature of Barrett Carter really takes that role on, and he's as elite as we can be. Because if Barrett Carter hits his ceiling, he's a really special player. I mean, he's definitely the best linebacker in the country if he hits his ceiling.
Hey, thanks for being here. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, please be sure to do so. I'm going to be back talking with Dustin Black in another video about safeties. Thanks, Dustin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.